listen to the silence of space. Tonight, we will fall asleep to stories about the space station and those who work there. Just close your eyes and let the voices from NASA take you to the stars.
Houston, we have a podcast. Welcome to the official podcast of the NASA Johnson Space Center, Episode 5, Astronaut Training. I'm Gary Jordan, and I'll be your host today. So this is the podcast where we bring in the experts, NASA scientists, engineers, astronauts, all to tell you the coolest things about NASA. So today we're talking about astronaut training with Randy Bresnik, known by his colleagues as Comrade. He's a U.S. astronaut here at the NASA Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. Well, actually, he's in space right now. He just launched from the Baikonur Cosmodrome and arrived at the International Space Station last week, July 28th, to start his long-duration spaceflight. But before he launched, I had a chance to chat with him, and we had a great discussion about what astronauts have to study, know, and endure to be successful in space. So with no further delay, let's go light speed and jump right ahead to our talk with Mr. Randy Bresnik. Enjoy.
T-minus 5 seconds and counting. Mark. All launch commit lights are correct. There she goes.
Houston, we have a podcast.
All right, well, thanks for coming, Randy. I know you had some back-to-back stuff going on today, so I appreciate you taking actually the time to sit down and talk with me for just a little bit. And so close to your launch, too. I know, like, it's going to be pretty busy up until the time that you actually are in space. And maybe by the time this podcast actually gets launched, you will actually be there. So this will be kind of appropriate with how busy and how quickly things are moving. So today, kind of wanted to talk about astronaut training, you know, what you have to go through in order to prepare yourself to go to space. And there's just so much. It has to be so diverse. Not only do you have to be a jack of all trades, but you have to be sort of like a master of all of them. I did want to start off with, though, first of all, I'm reading your name here. It's Randy Comrade Bresnik. What's the story behind Comrade?
It's a call sign from the Marine Corps. I come from the fighter community where I was flying F-18s, and typically we've always historically given call signs to people. You know, go back to World War II, Pappy Boyington. You know, these are nicknames that people had. Indian Joe Bauer. You know, was a squadron commander back when the squadron I was in, was in World War II. Mm-hmm. And so we have these call signs, and so you get one either for your name or for something you've done stupid. And so. Example that makes it really easy for people to understand is there's a guy who's in the training command. He's out there doing carrier calls for the first time, and when you're on the catapult, getting ready to get launched off the bow of the ship, those things accelerate you from 0 to 150 knots in under 2 seconds. And so you are going flying because this thing has so much mechanical power.
Yeah.
Well, he kept his feet on the brakes. The brakes were not going to hold the aircraft carrier from launching him, and so catapult launches, the brakes, the brakes he was holding, the tires blow, and so we ended with the call sign Bam Bam. And so I didn't have anything that had stuck until I got to the F-18 training squadron, and I go on my first flight with a Marine instructor, and he asked if I had call sign. I said, hey, they give me this, that, and he said, no, those all stink. I'll think of something. And so we go flying on the F-18. I had an amazing time. I was, the plane I always wanted to fly. It was just a phenomenal airplane. And you come back in the debrief, and we're done. He goes, all right, I have a call sign for you. I'm like, okay, knowing that these things can stick. He goes, Bresnik. That sounds like Brezhnev. We're going to call you Comrade Brezhnev. And that was it. And I, here I am quite a few decades later and haven't done anything stupid to get a new one.
Brezhnev after the Soviet leader and
Leonid Brezhnev.
Okay, and
yes.
I guess everyone called each other Comrade as like a...
Yeah, during Soviet times, that was how everybody addressed themselves.
Okay, I get the reference now. So just as a little bit of background, but you're Navy and Marines, is that correct?
I am the overall arching is naval aviator, which includes the Navy and the Marine Corps aviators. We wear the same wings on our we earn the same wings in flight school. We wear the same wings on our
okay. So when you talk about launching off of carriers and the Marines, so that's
right. That's part of our overall naval aviator training. So I was trained to launch off an aircraft carrier, launched off a T2, A4, and an F-18. But then as a Marine, we deploy expeditionarily. That's not even a word.
We'll make it a word.
Or expedition base, where we will launch and establish forward bases and fly out of there instead of just flying just off the aircraft carrier.
Okay. Now you're going to be launching soon, or if depending on when this podcast is released, you're in space right now. But this is not your first rodeo, right? You've been in space before. You launched in 2009 on STS-29 aboard Atlantis. How was that?
STS-129 was really neat. I had fortunate to have a really great crew. We had 2 Marine test pilots, we had 2 Navy test pilots, and we had 2 smart guys. Our smart guys, Leland Melvin, here he is. He had been drafted into the NFL, playing football, but had a career-ending injury. But he had finished his education, and so he went back, got his master's, became a NASA engineer, and then became an astronaut.
Awesome.
And then because we had the 2 Marines, and he needed to raise the average IQ on the flight, and so we had Bobby Satcher, who his MIT PhD in chemical engineering, and that wasn't enough, so he went to Harvard and became a medical doctor as well, as an oncologist, and so he was there to try and make us all look good. And great guys. Butch Wilmore, myself, and Bobby were all first-time flyers, but the other 3 experienced crew were phenomenal mentors and taught us how to do what we needed to do while we were in training. So when we were able to go to space, we were able to execute very well, and hit all the tasks we needed to during the mission, and call it a success.
Now, compared to like International Space Station missions now, I mean, we're talking about 6 months-ish on the space station. This was relatively short, right? Just over 10 days aboard. So, I mean, you really had to soak it all in for those 10 days.
And it's we say the shuttle flights were a sprint and the station flight is a marathon.
Right.
For a shuttle flight, you train for every minute of that flight, because it's all once you launch, you've got every minute of every day, chock full of events.
Right.
And so you're able to practice and rehearse that. Whereas space station, we don't have that luxury. You don't know what you're doing next week, because something may break or something may change, or the priorities may, be adjusted. And so we do skills-based training, so that if I can do this particular task, well, I can do 100 tasks like that.
And this is for the space station,
For
right?
space station.
Yeah.
And so we do this skills-based training, so I've got skills in all these different areas, and we'll see how that skill will be put to use in maybe 10 or 20, 30 different areas during those 6 months, but I don't sit there and rehearse what I'm doing daily.
Right. So when you were on the shuttle, you did 2 EVAs, right? So you rehearsed those, and you had a lot of experience with exactly what you were doing. This was in the Nutribuoyancy Laboratory.
The Nutribuoyancy Lab, the world's largest swimming pool, 6 million gallons of water.
A lot of water.
The whole space station's underneath it. We used to have the shuttle in there when we were flying shuttle.
Right.
And I don't know why I'm talking with my hands, because there's a podcast, but it's just a pilot thing.
You look good when you're doing it. I can justify that.
And we rehearsed each EVA 6 to 7 times. I mean, every single time, exactly what we're doing, we know it very well. And here I am, Monday, I'm going for my last NBL run here before the flight. And, we've done a handful of runs of a bunch of different types of skills, not knowing if I'll do any of those particular things I rehearsed, or I'll be doing stuff I completely did not rehearse. But I've got a wide enough skill base to be able to do anything that's, comes, that we end up having to have happen, either planned or unplanned.
Yeah, I mean, I hear a lot of times that, you go into the Nutribuoyancy Laboratory and it kind of becomes almost muscle memory. You kind of know where you're going, the lay of the land a little bit.
That's the whole point.
Yeah.
That's with any of the training we do, space is such a unique environment physically, because your body's feeling the weightlessness, visually, because you're seeing the whole Earth go underneath you, and especially when you're outside in that spacesuit, your own personal spacecraft, and especially when you're underneath and you're holding on to something and you look down and your whole life has told you, wow, there's nothing between me and the Earth but my boots, and that's 200 miles. If I let go, I'm going to fall, because your whole life has taught you that here on Earth.
Yeah.
And it's a physical thing you have to overcome. And so to be able to have the muscle memory to go, I go to this spot, I put my tether here, I pull out this piece of equipment, you can just rely on that and get to the comfortability of the training, then you're able to not have it be such an overwhelming or physically, stressful event.
Okay. Well, so one cool thing about your 2 EVAs is something happened in between there. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I left Earth with my wife and son watching, and my daughter, who was 9 months in the womb at the time. And the funny thing is that the morning of that launch, we strap in. The weather was iffy, and really it was getting to the point where a few minutes before launch, up until 15 minutes before launch, our commander, who had the best view, was kind of going, yeah, it's not looking so good, guys. And so we started kind of getting prepared that, hey, we might actually scrub. And we're hearing the calls over the radio, and the guy who's the weather STA pilot said, hey, there's a hole that's coming over, here, and we came out of the 9-minute hold because there's a hole that was just aligning with the weather-wise to allow us to launch. And we came out of the 9-minute hold. It's like, we're going. It's like, wow, that's great. But at that point, I knew that, hey, I wasn't going to be around for the birth of our daughter.
Right.
And so we launched. We get going on the mission. We got docked to the space station. We knock out our first spacewalk. I'm the IV, or the guy being the basically the director, of the two guys out there on the EVA. Mm-hmm. And the plan was, because she had to be induced, they were going to have her deliver the next day, before my first EVA. And so they induced my wife, and Abigail didn't come out.
Oh.
She did not come. And so we wake up the next morning, and I'm expecting to wake up the morning of my first EVA and find out that my wife gave birth. Well, she's still in labor. That's not good. And so, but, the EVAs happen, and we practiced it these 6 times, and the mission's got to go. So I had to, compartmentalize and go, okay. And we had the thing, once we start, getting prepped for the EVA, that, whatever happens, I don't find out about it until we actually come back in the door. So get suited up, do our work, go out the door for my first EVA. Think about it afterwards. I was kind of expecting when I came back in, that to hear that she would have been born. And just think, wow, what are the odds that I'm outside on a spacewalk at the same time my wife's, giving birth to our daughter. And so we come back in, get put on the rack, and they pull off our helmet. I'm like,
is she born?
Nothing.
Is she born? No.
Still in labor.
No.
So I'm feeling really bad for my wife. I mean, that's something us men just really don't understand, and to have it go that long, I know is just very painful, and unfortunately it was. But in the end, she got to be there and give birth to our daughter. And so that night, go to sleep, and expecting to hear, in the morning, our daughter was born. I ended up having to get up to use the facilities the middle of the night, and I saw it was a KU band pass, so I quick call down and get a hold of her sister on the cell phone, and she's like, we're still in labor.
Still. Oh my God.
So I, they were pretty busy down there, so I just kind of put the phone down on the table next to in the delivery room, and so I was able to hear the sounds of the delivery room, until the KU pass went down, and turns out she was born about 20 minutes after the KU pass ended.
No,
so,
you just missed it.
So when I got up the next morning, the morning wake-up song was the song Butterfly Kisses that my wife had picked out as the song to play the morning our daughter's born.
So you knew.
That's
you knew
that's
how
I
song.
knew, but I hadn't heard from my wife yet. So they're playing the song. Does that mean it happened? So a few minutes later, they patched my wife through and was able to talk to her.
That is amazing. Talk about, you use the word compartmentalize. That, I can't even imagine. You're like, you're so concerned about your wife, and you're like, but I have this EVA to do, and I need to focus.
The whole, our whole shuttle crew and our whole, STS-129 team and our whole space program got us to that point to do that EVA, to, do this construction stuff.
Right.
And there's not a, failure's not an option. You got to focus. And then certainly when you're outside in your own personal spacesuit or spacecraft, in the most inhospitable, location known to man, because it's, plus 250 degrees in the sun and minus 250 degrees in the shade, there's no, margin for error. And so you have to compartmentalize. And so that was, as a pilot and a test pilot, that was the most, the culmination of my career. I'm in space. Now I'm going on a spacewalk. This is unbelievable. And the view was just indescribably beautiful. And then the very next day to have something surpass that was just, very fortunate, very blessed to be able to have experienced that.
Wow.
I wish I could have been there for my wife and been there at the delivery. But, that was not the plan for us. And so we were just, given grace, we were able to do our jobs in respective areas of the planet or off planet, and good news after that. And then the next day, waiting the whole day, waiting until I could finally see pictures, and get a little video sent to me, And then a few minutes after that, I was able to actually get on a two-way video conference with my wife and see her and hear her little voice. And that was, pretty special. But literally, my commander was at the node 2, waiting until I finished, kind of tapping his watch, because as soon as I hung up from that video conference, I had to float down into the airlock and close the hatch. And Bobby Satcher and I had to depress down to 10.2 psi's for the overnight camp out to get the nitrogen out of our bodies for the EVA the next day, where now I'm the EV1, I'm the lead for the spacewalk.
Oh,
so
wow.
Back to the compartmentalized to the last spacewalk of the flight.
Wow. All right.
So,
my daughter's born. That's cool. Okay, now I got to go. That's just what you have to do. And then that was, I guess, overnight purging. They don't do that anymore, right? They just
We do it called in-suit light exercise.
I see.
Where we're able to use less overall oxygen from the station to be more efficient with the oxygen that we have up there.
Makes sense. Okay. Well, so now you're gearing up for a 6-month journey. So tell us a little bit about sort of the training that has to go, I guess a little bit, how is it different in general from shuttle training, but just what all do you have to do to prepare yourself? Like what kinds of training does an astronaut have to do to be up there for 6 months?
Certainly there's a lot of, station training, because there's, you're up there for so much, and you got to be able to do everything. You've got to be able to execute the payloads and experiments. At the same time, you've got to be able to do the Earth's observation. You've got to be able to do the events to talk to people down here on the Earth and share the experience. On top of being the janitor, you got to clean up the vents and wipe down the handrails and make sure the station is in a clean situation.
Yeah.
We've got to be able to fix things that break. The toilet breaks. You're not calling the plumber. You are the plumber. You are the scientist. You are the plumber. You are the fix-it repairman.
Yeah.
And so that's where a lot of the training is like we talked about with the skills-based stuff, is how do I go ahead and fix this particular type of thing? How do I work this type of fitting, which is on 100 different pieces of equipment, but I know how to work that fitting.
I see.
Important stuff like our regenerative ECLIS systems, the environmental control and life support, the oxygen generator, these carbon dioxide scrubber, those types of things are really important to station.
Yeah.
And, so we've got to learn, in depth how to fix those if they break.
Right.
That's the stuff that really, we're proving, ISS is the proving ground for exploration, because when we launch to Mars, we can't have spares sent up. We can't just, if there's a problem, just deorbit and come back to Earth, in a couple hours. We got to have it all there. It's all got to work, and it's got to keep working for years at a time to be able to get there, do our mission, and then come back.
Yeah.
And so we're proving those technologies now.
That's amazing.
And with the current time where we don't have the shuttle and we don't have our Starliner or our Dragon crewed vehicles yet, our only way to space is through our Russian partners.
That's right.
And
so
60% of the time of my last year and a half has been in Russia, training to launch, rendezvous, dock, and then land on the Soyuz.
So what's your role on the Soyuz then?
On the Soyuz, I'm in the left seat, or they call the flight engineer.
Okay.
And so my Russian crewmate Sergei Ruzhansky is in the center seat. He's the commander of the Soyuz. And so between the two of us, we work and run all the systems within the Soyuz. And then our flight engineer number 2, now, because we've changed crews a little bit here recently, Paolo Nispoli from Italy. And so the three of us will be launching July 28th.
So 60% of your time, I guess you said for the past year and a half, has been over there. Wow, it must be a complicated system then, right? So.
It's complicated. There's also the Russian segment training that we get, because that's a good half a station. We typically don't work down there daily, but especially I'll be the commander of the ISS for Expedition 53. I kind of need to know what's going on in the whole station. So we get training so that I can be helpful to those guys, know what's going on, and then if necessary, make decisions based on the health of the entire space station.
That's awesome. So what kind of, you're there for so long, what are you going over? Are you going over mostly how to work the thing, or if this goes wrong, this is what, like, emergency situations?
Mostly that, and that's the same thing, because it's a dynamic flying vehicle. That's the dangerous part of the mission. And then same thing with shuttle. We did so many sims just for ascent, entry, and landing, and fortunately, the majority of that training that we got, we never had to use. but if you had to use it, your life depended on it, and it was very time critical. So that's why constant rehearsal over those things.
Right.
Not to mention the fact that, you're in Russia and doing this stuff in Russian, that there's a little bit extra, margin that you have to add for that, because it's not one of the easier languages.
I hear that's one of the more difficult parts of training is Russian language. You're right. It's very difficult. I'm starting training here in the next couple of weeks, and I'm nervous. I'm very nervous. So, I mean, being an astronaut, though, it's not just, flying the vehicles and fixing stuff. You have to be in tip-top shape, right? There's a physical element to it. Every astronaut is just in super good. Do you guys have physical requirements? Like, so you have to work out this much time, or even medical. Do you have to learn how to, in case of an emergency, patch someone up or anything like that?
All right, so sounds like two questions there.
I guess it is two questions.
Yeah. Certainly the workout point, the better shape your body is in, the better it will be able to respond and adapt to zero gravity, and then maintain itself when it doesn't have gravity to help keep your bones strong and your muscles strong and all that. So that's certainly one of the bigger concerns about leaving, our Van Allen radiation belt, which protects us here, in low Earth orbit and on the planet, and going to far off destinations. How do we protect the physical body of the crew so that when they get to somewhere, they can do the exploration that we want to do? So there's a lot of, obviously, the protected from radiation, there's protected from zero gravity,
right.
And we do have a lot of countermeasures now, and that's why space station and being up there for 6 months gives us really good insight, is to do, since you don't get the sun, can we up your vitamin D? Can we get the certain diet? Can we get the proper exercise with, aerobic and anaerobic exercise to keep the body from, deteriorating in zero G, which it would normally do. They say that being up there is like, a person having osteoporosis. And so you can't just do nothing. Otherwise you come back in bad shape, having lost a lot of bone.
So you train how to use the, workout equipment.
Right, the workout equipment, which is, amazing. The advanced resistive exercise device is a phenomenal piece of equipment that does all kinds of different stuff. And people are coming back, in better shape, than they leave sometimes. Part of it's the fact that we have to dedicate a couple hours every day to working out. Your body,
right.
Here on Earth, standing up and sitting down out of a chair, getting out of bed, getting in your car, walking to to work. Those little things that you do, even if you're not, quote, exercising like we would think, your still body's moving. In space, you're floating around. You're not doing anything difficult all day long. So that's the only exexercise you really get.
Yeah, because otherwise there would be that kind of natural deterioration. Yeah. We had an episode beforehand where we talked with John and Charles, where if your body doesn't need your bones and muscles because it's not using it as much, then your body says, all right, we don't need to put any energy towards that. And,
exactly.
Yeah.
And so, and then the medical question,
right?
Yeah, I mean, there's no doctors there, so we trained to, you have, telemedicine and things like that are really, technology is really allowing us to do well now these days. We're the eyes and ears, for the doctor. We're like space EMTs. We can do the initial triage, and we train for somebody who's not breathing or somebody's had, they don't have a heartbeat. We can take care of all that stuff on orbit, stabilize them, and then get the docs involved, and then figure out how to do follow-on treatment, or if necessary, for a medical emergency evacuation on the space station.
And you guys are running through these procedures kind of repetitively, I would assume, right? Yeah.
I got to build the muscle memory.
Yeah.
And fortunately we got great procedures and great training that allows it to be where, okay, we can get the person to here by stuff that we've, learned and memorized, and then we open up the procedure and go, okay, here's where we're at, and then we can sync up with the ground and go, here's what's next. Hey, doc, you got any other idea? Here's a video camera picture of the patient. Here's what we're seeing. Okay, we all agree. Let's, let's give them this particular, medicine or something like that they need. So it's really a group effort.
I'm imagining, I was a lifeguard in way back in high school, and I'm imagining just kind of like that, but just a million times more complicated, because it's the same thing, right? You're sitting and watching a pool, but every once in a while something goes wrong and you got to know what to do. Yeah. So you have kind of a unique set of experiences. Not only are you an astronaut, but you are an aquanaut and a caveanaut. I want to start with a caveanaut. What is a caveanaut? What did you do in a cave? I guess you lived in a cave, right?
We did. The European Space Agency back in 2011 started this expeditionary and extreme environment training called CAVES.
Okay.
And they originally planned it as kind of a cooperative behavior thing, kind of more of a, how do you get along with people and, put the astronauts all together and put them in little stressful situations and see how they evolve and how they, the personality skills and that kind of stuff. And it was in the caves, the vast underground cave systems in Sardinia, Italy, which is an island off the west coast of the main body of Italy.
Okay.
And so you start out, just like with any training, with basic caving stuff and rappelling and climbing. And then you went to spend a day where you're in these really narrow caves where it's really whining about getting lost and navigation and being able to go through squeezes and navigating through tiny, areas of the cave to overcome any claustrophobia or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then on a day we did the whole cave photography and how to map out and allow us to make maps from the data we collect in the caves, from laser range fires, how big's the room, what shape is it, how was the inclination. Put that all together to the final exercise, which is a week underground. And you head in a kilometer and a half from the opening of the cave, and that's where the base camp was. And we're in this tens of kilometers long cave, and there was a point where the maps ended. And our job was to go out every day and map out new parts of the cave. So we decided what hole, dark spot to go into and check out, see if that was a dead end or see if that was somewhere to go, and go back and further into the cave and go through it's amazing going through a tiny area, kind of like squeezing through a toilet seat almost, and opening up to a cathedral-sized room underground. You're going, I'm underground.
Whoa.
Look at this huge area. There were no trails, no lights, no guardrails.
Right, because you're mapping it. You're discovering
You're mapping it. You figure very few humans have ever seen this.
Right.
And it's unlike anything you've ever seen on the earth or seen pictures of. I mean, it's just, and so you got this real feeling for exploring. You go, okay, we're excited. Hey, we know we can go this way or that way. Let's go that way today, and let's go see what's over there.
That's so cool.
And so it was really, really an enjoyable thing to do with these other people, these other astronauts who are just as excited about this exploring too, and really applicable to what we do in space. Because what they found from doing this caves exercise is that there's a lot more space applications than they thought, because in space you don't know what time it is, because every 45 minutes you get a sunrise and then a sunset, and that goes happen 16 times a day.
Right.
Well, in a cave, it's dark all the time, so you never know what time it is. So you could just be marching along, doing stuff, and realize, oh, my, why do I feel tired? Oh, I've been up for 20 hours, I forgot to eat, because I didn't have, it's lunchtime,
Yeah, you kind of have to just make up almost a biological clock because you don't have the sun.
Like I said, there's no guardrails, there's no paths.
Yeah.
There is a definite apparent fear of death. You could be doing stuff where you're attached onto a guideline, and it could be 200 feet. If you take a slip and you're not attached, you're 200 feet. I mean, it's very much like being in space, where if you're on a spacewalk and something goes wrong and you're not tethered properly, it's a bad day.
Wow. Once you got set up and I guess on base camp, did you light up everything so you can see a little bit, or was it pretty much,
You had your helmet light. That was it.
That was it? The entire time?
And you got used to it. And that was pretty neat. And so that was made photography really interesting, because what you would do is you'd put the thing on manual, you'd open the shutter, and then you'd take a flash and you'd hit it a couple of different times and just point it at different areas of the cave, trying to not point it at the camera, but kind of shield it with your body, so you could light up different stuff. So it's kind of like painting by the numbers. You're just painting with lights, with the flash, or even flashlights. You could actually do squiggles and write words with the flashlight of what it was showing on places.
Wow.
And so you then close the shutter and see what showed up on the screen to see what you got, because you couldn't tell, because it was just flash and lights moving all around during the picture, and then you look to see what it all amalgamated to at the end.
That's
really
amazing.
neat.
Wow. I guess, what was it like seeing the sun for the first time after being there for so long?
It was really bright, and was in the cave with Thomas Pesquet and Tim Peake, and when we came out, Thomas was like, the sky's a different blue. They changed the blue. It was just so vibrant. And the other thing that was so amazing was that the sights and sounds and smells in the cave are all very much the same. And we came out after that week, and literally you could smell every bush and the dirt and the grass. I mean, it's just shocking. It's just so sensory overload with your smell.
Yeah, because I guess your body adapted to not
having it.
Yeah.
And so very much like, you hear people come back from space station, where you don't have the fresh smells or the breeze, from the wind that modulates. You have the constant breeze of the air ducts in the ventilation system. And certainly the smells get pretty standard up there. And you come back and you just, feeling the grass under your toes and, this and that. I mean, we're supposed to be landing in December. I'm like, smell? I'm sure snow will have a smell when I come back. Going, that's fresh snow. That's awesome.
Okay, so we have like one more minute, but I did want to ask, I would want to follow up about the Aquanaut experience, what it was like to live underwater.
That was amazing too, because I've been scuba diving for years, and I just loved how unique that environment is, the wildlife underneath there. And the Aquarius habitat right now is the only thing on the planet where people can go live underwater. Wow. There's actually been less aquanauts, people that have spent more than 24 hours underwater, than there have been astronauts.
Oh.
And so that's pretty, interesting fact.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing about that is, again, like the caves, there's an apparent fear of death. I mean, you're 40 feet underwater, but once you're saturated, that's not safety. Something goes wrong with your equipment. You can't just do an emergency ascent. Going to the surface will kill you.
Yeah.
You have to get back inside, and we have to, use the habitat as a hyperbaric chamber.
Wow.
And so you got to figure out what's going on. And so buddy checking your gear, just like we do on spacewalk, very important. Knowing where your buddy is and what he's doing in case you have a problem, you can go over somewhere and buddy breathe. Things like that have to be in your mind the whole time you're doing a simulated spacewalk on the underground, and then be able to live underwater and see the cycles of the fish and what fish were active at daylight, what fish were active at nighttime,
Mm-hmm.
and just seeing that whole thing unfold around you every day just made it a really amazing experience. And you're in this habitat that's the size of like a school bus, and there's 6 of you living and working for a week, and you got to figure out how to get over any individual issues you might have and be able to be an effective member of the team. And between those different extreme environments, the hope is that when someone finally gets a chance to go to space, that it's just one of many extreme environment things that they can add to their repertoire, and it's not such a huge overall assault on their senses and their physical being, because they've been in extreme places before. This is just one more rather than the first one they see.
Yeah, it sounds like you're taking little things from each experience. For the Cavenaut, you're taking, adjusting your biological clock. From Aquanaut, you're taking, the camaraderie and buddy checks, making sure everyone's okay. And just, obviously there's got to be more, but just that whole round experience makes you like truly a knot. I don't know, an all knot? I'm making up words here. Anyway, well, comrade, thank you for coming on the show. I know you're a very busy man, so just best of luck to your mission. Maybe by the time this is up here, you'll already be up there. So again, best of luck to you. For the listeners, if you want to stay tuned till after the music here, we'll tell you how you can follow Comrade on his journey. He's on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, if I'm correct, right?
Correct.
All right, so we'll tell you about that after the show. So thanks again, Comrade.
My pleasure, and good luck with the podcast.
Thanks.
Houston, go ahead.
Off of the space shuttle.
Roger, 0G, and I feel
The
fine.
shuttle has cleared the tower.
indeed for all mankind.
It's actually a huge honor to break a record like this.
Not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
Never Houston, welcome to space.
Hey, thanks for sticking around. So today we talked with astronaut Randy Comrade Bresnik, and he is very active on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. On Facebook, he's NASA astronaut Randy Comrade Bresnik, on Twitter @AstroComrade, and on Instagram also @AstroComrade. And you can follow him on any one of those accounts. You can actually just search Randy Bresnik, and he'll probably pop up. He's verified on all the other accounts. And he shares pictures of his experience on board and some images of the Earth, so please follow along. If you want to see the whole journey of the International Space Station, that's where he is right now, that's also on all of those platforms, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. On Facebook is the International Space Station page, on Twitter @space_station, and on Instagram is @ISS. Just use the hashtag AskNASA on any one of those platforms, and you can submit an idea to the podcast, or maybe ask a question, and we'll make sure to address it in one of the later podcasts. This podcast was recorded on May 4th, so May the 4th be with you. It's probably way too late for that, but that's okay. We're recording it on May 4th. I'm really in the mood. Thanks to John Stoll, Alex Perryman, Pat Ryan, and John Streeter for helping out with this episode, and thanks again to Mr. Randy Bresnik for coming on the show. We'll be back next week. Houston, we have a podcast. Welcome to the official podcast of the NASA Johnson Space Center, Episode 6, the most awesome podcast from space. I'm Gary Jordan, and I'll be your co-host today, along with Dan Hewitt. Dan, what's up?
Hey, Gary. Today's episode was a little different because we had a conversation with Jack Fisher, a U.S. astronaut, while he was in space. And we did the whole thing live, so we brought in some social media questions real time, and Jack was answering them.
That's right. It was a wicked, awesome discussion about what it's like to live in space, work on science experiments, and see the Earth below while you're traveling at 17,500 miles per hour, watching the sun rise and set 16 times a day. Such a unique perspective of the planet. So, with no further delay, let's go light speed and jump right ahead to our talk with Colonel Jack Fisher. Enjoy.
T-minus 5 seconds and counting. Mark. All launch commit lights are correct. There she goes.
Houston, we have a podcast.
Yeah, it's real good to be back. I was on the first episode, and I'm not the expert. We are talking to the expert in space today. It's super exciting, and again, just wrap your mind around that. We're about to talk to somebody in outer space.
Yeah.
How cool is that?
This is crazy. I mean, we're looking at him right now, getting set up. This is crazy. I mean, for me, this is my very first time talking to somebody in space.
That's right. Gary's newer here, so he hasn't had the privilege. I've been here a little bit longer, and I've done it maybe once or twice still, but it's really exciting. It makes you a little bit nervous, but it's really cool to live in a time where we have the capabilities to talk to somebody who's in outer space, who's flying around us at 17,000 miles an hour. I mean, one of the coolest examples I can think of that happening, and it shows you just how far we've come. I mean, it used to be you needed satellite dishes and technology and that weighed millions of pounds, all these things just to talk to somebody, a few hundred miles away. And now you can talk to somebody in space on a cell phone. That actually happened to us once. We were over in Kazakhstan, and we had just watched one of the crews launch to the International Space Station, and it had been a couple of hours, so they were almost docked, and we were heading to an old theater in Baikonur to go watch the actual docking and the crew members get there. And one of my colleagues' phones rang, and he answered it, and you could just see his face light up. And it was just a real short conversation. Oh yeah, no, that sounds great. Sounds cool. Yeah, we'll definitely use that. That was it. He hung up, and he said that was the commander of the International Space Station. He just called me on my cell phone to tell me how he was setting up a camera to watch the crew members come on board. So, I mean, just that blew my mind, because we were just in this remote part of the planet, and you can get a phone call from somebody in space. It's just so incredible that we're living in this time, and we're about to talk to somebody in space. And if you can't tell, I'm really excited. And I know Gary is too.
Yeah, very, very true. It's just crazy. You could pick up a box, and then literally it is space calling. I've heard stories of all kinds, astronauts calling pizza joints and ordering pizza for a colleague whose birthday it was or something like that. It's just, it's the most insane thing to think about. But, okay, so today we're talking with somebody in space, Jack Fisher. Let's talk a little bit about him. Who is this guy?
So Jack Fisher is one of the flight engineers for Expedition 52. He's been on board the International Space Station since April, when he launched with the Russian cosmonaut Fyodor Yurchikhin. Jack is one of the relatively newer astronauts in the Corps. He was selected back in 2009, and this is his first space flight. So this is his first time in space, and he's been up there for a couple of months now. He's got a STEM background like all of the astronauts do, degrees in aeronautical engineering and aeronautics and astronautics, a lot of A words in there. And he went to MIT, so he's got a pretty nice resume to make him an astronaut. But he was also in the Air Force. He's an Air Force colonel with 3,000 flight hours, more than 45 different aircraft, and he worked in a whole bunch of different jobs before he ever flew into space. And all the astronauts do that. They're either supporting different technical programs here at NASA. Jack was a Capcom, so he was one of the people who actually talks to astronauts every single day.
Oh, wow.
So, for people like them, talking to somebody in space, it's their job. It's kind of, it's old hat. And for us, it's super unique. But he's done all of those things, and now he's been on board for the last couple of months. And he's been doing everything from spacewalking to science to capturing, visiting spacecraft, kind of the whole gamut of stuff.
Unbelievable. Okay, so he's now he's got that experience, right? He's got not only the flight time just in planes, but now he's got flight time, traveling 250 miles above the Earth, really fast. So he's got. So how were his spacewalks? What's that?
Yeah, so he did 2 spacewalks, and every astronaut will tell you that spacewalks are one of the most unique, one of the most dynamic things they get to do. It's kind of one of the coolest things about being in space a lot of times. And he did 2 back in May. One, they just replaced a component on the outside, and the other one was something we called an unplanned spacewalk, where something broke and they had to go outside and replace it. And so he did both of those with Peggy Whitson, who's been up there with him the whole time. He affectionately refers to her as the Space Ninja. She is the all-time record holder for American astronauts for time in space, so definitely a good person to have up there with you on your first trip.
Awesome. Well, okay, so we are going to be talking to Jack Fisher here in just a few minutes. If you are tuning in on Facebook Live, we are actually monitoring the questions right here and going to answer them as they come along, maybe even send a couple up to Jack once we get started here. So we have a couple coming in already. We have folks checking in from all over the world. I see some from Italy. I see some from obviously here in the States. So everyone, welcome. I did see one question actually before we even started this one. This one is from Kelly, and she said her 5-year-old was asking if some of the astronauts watch movies on the International Space Station.
They do. We do like to equip them with some of the kind of creature comforts of being back here at home.
Cool.
And one thing they have up there is they actually have a very small projector and then a large screen. I think it's about 40 inches or so. Mm-hmm. And they'll have movie nights. And we do have a picture. And this is all 6 crew members. They use bungee cords to kind of make little lean-to hammocks and even breaking out their sleeping bags to gather together and watch movies in space. A lot of them will tell you they like to watch a lot of space movies just because, I mean, they're up there, they're living it. But it's just one of those things that kind of makes living in space a little bit more like being back here at home. Because, I mean, you're in a really strange place.
It's true.
You're completely isolated from everybody except for the 2 or 5 people with you. So having things like movies can make that time a lot easier.
And it seems like camaraderie has got to be one of the more important aspects of living in space too. Just getting along with your crewmates and doing stuff together. I guess they watch movies together as we just saw in that picture, but I know they eat meals together too.
Oh yeah, they do. And they're together for years before they ever fly. They'll usually you'll be with the same people pretty much throughout all of your work time for 2 years before you ever fly in space with them. So they know each other very well before they fly. Mm-hmm. Meals are definitely one of those things. So it's an international space station. So there's a lot of international foods. So they like to come together and share little creations. The food's not quite as gourmet as it might be down here on Earth, but they do have a couple of ways to make it a little bit more interesting. And they like to put hot sauces and things like that on a ton of stuff just because your taste actually changes when you're in space. And that's due to all the fluids rushing up and a whole bunch of crazy things happen. But
wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, well, if you have any more questions for Jack, just put them in the comment section. We'll kind of follow along, and even he's getting set up here right now, but once we start connect with him in just a few minutes here, we'll read those questions up to him. But personally for me, I mean, besides just you reading his bio, this is the first time I've met Jack. The first time I'm actually going to be talking to him.
So Jack, highly recommend following him on social media. He's brought just an incredible amount of excitement to everything that he's been doing. And again, he's a first timer, so he's been experiencing all this for the first time and sharing it with people as he did. I actually got to meet Jack 3 years ago. We were both down in Florida for Orion's first space flight, EFT-1. It was the first time we put Orion, our next generation spacecraft, into outer space. And he was basically assigned to be our voice for the entire agency. So we went around talking to media, all of these different people to tell them about Orion. And again, he just brings like this level of enthusiasm. He's got a great sense of humor. He's incredibly knowledgeable. So he's going to be really great for this, the most awesome podcast from space today. So I'm super excited.
Absolutely. Appropriately named too. That's what we're going to be calling this episode. So we'll talk to him right now. This will be our live episode that we're doing here. You'll be able to interact with us live, but then it'll be available on iTunes, SoundCloud, and NASA.gov. The recorded audio version after this, I guess tomorrow we'll post it. So there'll be a full transcript with that as well. So right now
we're 20 seconds away.
Oh, okay.
We're about 20 seconds away. Gary, are you ready? Are you ready to talk to space for the very first time?
I think so. think so.
Are you
Dan.
ready? Okay, everybody, let's get ready for Gary. This can be a little nerve-wracking, I assure you, but just a couple of seconds.
Okay, so we'll wait for the call from Mission Control Houston here and start talking to Jack soon.
Station, this is Houston. Are you ready for the event?
I sure am.
JSC PAO, this is Mission Control Houston. Please call station for a voice check.
Station, this is Gary Jordan and Dan Hewitt here for Houston. We have a podcast. How do you hear me?
Loud and clear. Gary and Dan, great to be with you today.
Awesome. Well, I am extremely excited about this episode because as I was telling Dan here beforehand, this is usually when we have a guest, they're in the studio, let alone on the planet. So I'm going to start off this conversation by asking something that I literally cannot ask anyone else. How's life in space today?
It's awesome, like it is every day. And what I was going to do, just because, it is your first guest from space, every single question, I'm going to go on a different, wall. So I'll be on the walls, I'll be on the ceiling. I'm gonna adjust orientation mid-interview at every question just because I can, and it's cool.
I love it. Okay, awesome. So you're used to space now. You've been up there for, almost 4 months.
Yeah.
So, when you're going to be switching from wall to wall, do you sort of get disoriented, or is your body used to it at this point?
Nah, it kind of figured it out pretty quick. And, that's what's so awesome about the human brain. We come up here in a completely foreign environment, and the brain's just like, man, all this vestibular, all these things that I normally use to figure out which way's up and to orient this body for this dude doesn't work. So I have to find a different way. And it forces your mind and your body to grow and to look at things differently. So you start looking three-dimensionally at everything around you, and it's amazing how quickly your body can adapt and just get used to it. All right, that was question one. I got to switch now.
All right, well, why you do that? That just kind of leads into what is difficult to get used to when you get up there, because it's a completely alien environment from what we grow up and you spend your entire life experiencing. What's tough about it?
Absolutely. And, it totally depends on the person, and we can't really predict, even depending on your background. I come from a test pilot background and, can do things in an airplane that would make a billy goat puke, but that doesn't mean that when I get up here, I'm going to be any better than a scientist who's never been in a plane. It's not a good predictor. I was lucky, and when I got up here, I didn't have congestion or upset stomach or any of those big problems that some people deal with. But everybody has to learn how to fly, and so as a test pilot, I was probably worse than most because most people find a way to, translate and fly from point to point and just be happy with it. But for me, every day I got to try something new. So I would really suck at it and run into stuff and hit myself into things. And that wasn't good. But then I'd get better. And then I'd try something more, or I'd try going faster, and it was like this cycle. So now I'm doing pretty good, but it was a long and bumpy road, and don't ask Peggy how many things I knocked off the wall.
We talked a little bit earlier. So you got Peggy Whitson up there, the space ninja, as you like to call her. Are there any crazy moves that you've broken out that she's looked at you and said, Jack, no, stop, don't do that again?
Oh my gosh, so many times. She has a patented look. It's the Two Fish, you are crazy look, and I pretty much got that down. When I get the Peggy Whitson Two Fish, you're crazy look, then I know, okay, that one I gotta stop.
So, what have you learned? Now you've been in space with Peggy Whitson for this long. What have you learned from her that you sort of take with you? And then, I guess kind of off of that, what have you learned that really sort of annoys her that you really like to do?
Well, We're like two peas in a pod. We give each other a hard time all the time, so we tease each other a bunch. We have a good time. But I'm very... I just can't even say how lucky I am to have been on orbit with not only Peggy but also Fyodor Yurchikhin, my commander and friend in the Soyuz and the commander of the station now. Those two have so much experience that I learn everything from them. They, not just the big stuff of how to organize your day and how to be efficient and those type of things, but even the little stuff. And I every time they're around, my eyes are wide open. How is Peggy cutting her food packet? Because it's probably the best way, because she's done it quite a few times. So, how is Fyodor holding his camera? What settings is he using for this task? It's to just watch them and just soak that in. Gosh, I am so lucky to have been up here with these two and just soak in all their goodness and knowledge.
And you've been working side by side with them for the last couple of months. Just walk us through real quick. What's just, some of the stuff you're doing up there? Because it's a lot more than just flying and stuff like that. You're doing, serious experiment work up there.
Oh, absolutely. The space station is just the most amazing world-class laboratory, floating around doing science all day, every day. We're doing science inside. We're doing science outside. Let me turn this off real quick. We're getting an echo, so I don't want you to hear me twice. That's way too much. So the space station, for example, when SpaceX 11 came up, it had 6 tons of science, mostly science on board, that then we had to bring on board, knock out that science, get it back on the SpaceX and back to Earth. That's the job of this place, is just rocking the science. We're doing not only stuff for human health and those type of sciences. There was a great experiment that Peggy was working on the other day with a new drug that actually targets cancer cells. We're growing lung cancer tissue, and it was doing some great work against the cancer. How cool would that be if we could crack the code of that horrible disease that, even my daughter fell prey to? So not just those, we're looking just 10 feet from me is a machine called the ELF that's looking at new ways to create alloys that are lighter, that are stronger. I mean, this whole place, every square inch is dedicated to either pure science or the systems that are going to keep us and those science experiments cranking away and getting great results back to Earth to help humanity, to make humanity better, and to enable us to explore and go further into the universe.
That sounds incredible. I'm sure, besides all the science, you have a lot of, I guess, I don't know about a lot of chances, but you do have the chance to sort of look out the window and see the Earth go by. So we do have a Facebook question from Wisal. How do we look from orbit? I don't know if whenever you're taking pictures of the Earth, I don't know if you can zoom down and actually get so close that you can start to see people, or are you that far up?
Well, we're pretty far up. If we had a bigger, lens, we could probably see you. But the bigger the lens, the smoother you have to be. Fyodor could probably do it. I can't do it. So the biggest that I've been using is an 800 millimeter lens, and we can get about to houses and see houses. So that's about as fine detail as what we can see. So we're not looking in your window and spying on you, I promise.
Well, that's good to know. But I'm sure, you're traveling so fast around the Earth, you get to see so much of it. Is there any sort of places on Earth that really stand out to you that you really like to either gaze at or kind of take pictures of? Because you see so much of it in a short period of time.
You bet. There are places that, kind of blew me away for sure the first time I saw them. The Bahamas are the blue is just ridiculous. I don't even know. It's hard to believe it's real. One of Fyodor's favorite places is Kamchatka, which is kind of a little flange off the top end of Russia. And there's all these great volcanoes that are just incredible looking. So there's a lot of places that are wonderful, but what I've really tried to do, and it's probably why I don't have pictures of specific places like my hometown in Colorado, Louisville, or those places, is because I kind of go to the window and let God show me the tour, and I've never been disappointed. You could be flying over the Sahara and you'll see these bright reds and, a mountain right next to sand or a sandstorm. And then you'll be in the Himalayas and you'll see these incredible mountains. Every time I look out the window, I'm just in awe at how beautiful the earth is. So my favorite place, Earth.
Oh, good answer. All right, well, your acrobatics are making a lot of people jealous, and we're actually getting a lot of questions about how to become an astronaut. So I want to switch gears real quick. So we've had a lot of news, a lot of stuff out there. We just hired a new group of astronauts, or new astronaut candidates that are going to be reporting soon. And one of my favorite things to talk to them about was when they got the call that they were going to come be an astronaut. But I don't know if you remember, but I was actually with you shortly after you got the call that you had gotten assigned to a mission. So I have to ask, which one was more exciting? You're going to be an astronaut, or hey, it's time to go fly in space?
Boy, that's tough. Probably that you're going to be an astronaut. Not because you take it for granted that you'll fly, but it's just once you're an astronaut, you got a real good chance that you're going to fly. Before that, and to become an astronaut, when people ask, how do you become an astronaut? Well, I'll give you the advice that my dad gave me, dare to dream. So only you can define your own dream, to find your passion, the thing that really makes you go. Because once you find that, you're going to work hard at it. And that's what the dare part is. Nobody's going to give it to you. You got to work really hard to make that passion and that dream a reality. But then there's one more part of it. And to become an astronaut, one of the biggest parts of it is just sheer luck, timing. And I am just lucky. There are tons of people more qualified than me that are better than me in every single way, but maybe that round of interviews, they didn't apply, or they weren't in the right place in their life that they could apply. I just got lucky to be in the right place at the right time and be a part of an incredible group. So my advice for people who want to become an astronaut, find your passion so that you never work a day in your life. Work really hard at it. And then even if it doesn't work out because you weren't lucky at the right time to be selected as an astronaut, you're still doing what you love, and you're making a big difference on this planet.
Well, Jack, I don't think you give yourself enough credit. I think you're an extremely hard worker, and your passion is definitely reflected on everything that you do, and especially us. We really enjoy watching you on orbit. But for folks who want to become an astronaut, you can actually give them a sense of sort of what that feels like. And I know there's a lot of hard work and a lot of different things you have to learn, but there's also that element, that human element of being in space, of living in space. So I have a question just about, do you ever feel isolated? Do you ever feel away from things, or are you sort of connected? And then I have another question from Facebook from Kay asking if you have insomnia in space. They're two sort of related questions, not really, but that feeling of being in space.
Okay, I'm gonna have to flip mid-question because that's really two questions.
Yeah,
so I'll do the first one quickly. The insomnia one, some people have a hard time sleeping in space. I don't. My back usually kind of hurts on the ground because I've been flying fighters for too long. But up here, I feel great. So it's like sleeping on an airbed because, well, I'm floating on air. So that's awesome. Okay, now I gotta flip. Isolated. You do feel a bit, not because there's not connectivity with the ground. We can call via an internet protocol phone, as well as video chat sometimes. And then we're in constant communication with the ground all throughout the day. As far as feeling isolated, sometimes you feel because everything you're doing is being watched. And I'm not talking about a podcast or posting on Twitter or any of those type of things. Everything we do as we're doing science and as we're doing activities is being watched by the control centers worldwide that are keeping this place running. And so you can kind of feel like, my gosh, because you're going to make mistakes. You can't go for 6 months doing, 12 hours a day and not make mistakes. You're going to make mistakes. And sometimes you feel like, man, everybody is seeing everything that I'm doing wrong, like you have a bad day. That's when I break into my emergency coffee store and get another coffee pouch out so I can have some coffee, and then things get better.
All right. We only got a couple of minutes left, so it's time to get into some of the deep stuff, some of the deep cuts here. So you've been up there for a couple of months. Has just your perspective about everything, about life on Earth, about life in general, about your job, about all that, has being in space changed that?
Like, do you have the overview effect?
Yeah. You do, because you get to see the world in this totally different light, this world without borders, one shared experience for everybody, and the beauty and just that thin blue line that is so frail that holds all life. Your perspective has to grow and adapt and change to that. But like I mentioned earlier, how quickly your brain adapts and grows, I think that perspective helps you grow as well. And that's why after this experience, yes, my perspective has changed, but it has really inspired me to try to get more people this experience and to get a permanent foothold in the stars for our species. I think we're on the verge of that. And with Orion and SLS, our new huge rocket, we're taking steps towards that, as well as a commercial industry, a burgeoning commercial industry that's building the infrastructure for us to press further into the galaxy. So my perspective change is that I want to do everything I possibly can to help the human species, humanity as a whole, go further and grow and evolve like I know they're capable of.
Amazing. It's just such an incredible perspective. Looking down and, just realizing kind of what we can accomplish, it's kind of amazing. But I guess from there, do you ever sort of miss Earth? Or maybe even, I guess, here's a question from Geraldine. You ever miss gravity?
Oh, sometimes. The other day I was doing a task and my wrench pops off the bolt and it goes flying off, and I'm like, no big deal, it'll hit the wall, it'll come back to me. And I look over and there's this gap above the rack, and it's like an inch. And that wrench decided, I'm gonna turn, so I'm perfectly in line with that gap, and it went floating inside, and then it was behind the rack and lost forever. Probably in 2 years, somebody's gonna be cleaning an air vent and go, oh, hey, look, a wrench, I wonder where that came from. So there are some times you really miss gravity, but about 99.9% of the time, you don't.
All right. Well, first off, I just want to say I fully support your new perspective because I want to go to space. So, Jack, do everything you can to get me up there. So you're getting close to coming home. You're coming home at the beginning of September. Is there anything left on the list that you want to do while you're up there? Is there a space bucket list before you come back?
There is, and it's such a huge list, you can kind of get overwhelmed by it. I want to picture this or that, or, I made a list and I said I'm not going to add anything else to it. So I'm almost through it as far as the stuff I want to take pictures of or record or grab. And then I'm going to take all my spare time and just go down and grab a window or whatever and sit there and soak it up and just enjoy it and take a mental image so that I can fuel that passion. And when I come back to try to talk to people and get them excited about space, there's a big old well of passion inside me because I just sat there and plugged into the inspiration bar in the cupola. You look out, especially not just down at Earth, but out towards the stars, and it can't help but make you so excited that there's something else out there that we're gonna go and explore, and I can't wait.
Wow. Just, Jack, this has been such an incredible few minutes with you. Thank you so much for actually taking the time to talk with us and to answer some questions from Facebook Live and to spend this time with us. Honestly, this is one of the best experiences of my life. If I had to pin it into a phrase, and this is just off the top of my head, I'd pin it as something like a triple-decker, fully loaded burger of awesome between two perfectly toasted awesome buns.
Nailed it.
That's
Nailed it.
That's just off the top of my head. But again, thank you so much for spending this time with me, and best of luck to you on the rest of your mission.
Well, thanks a lot. I'll try to say goodbye while I'm spinning. If I run into something, you can laugh. But thank you for letting me be a part of this, and I hope everybody that's in the podcast universe had a great time. Please, if you get excited about space, NASA.com, we have so many resources, so many ways that you can get engaged, whether you're a teacher, a student, just a guy on the street. Please check it out.
Wow. So incredible.
Station, this is Houston ACR. That concludes the event.
Thank you all participants with JSC PAO. We're now resuming operational comm.
All right. Wow.
Oh, man. So we just talked to somebody in space.
That was really cool.
That was really cool, right? How cool is that?
Wow. I really just appreciate his energy. You know, the life that he adds. It's not just like a conversation, this is what I'm doing. No, he's truly passionate about being in space and pressing forward on NASA's mission. It totally comes across in everything he does.
It's still surreal because I mean, for everybody watching, you can see we were looking at Jack on a TV.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks like he's 5 feet away from us when in reality he's probably on the other side of the planet right now, flying around. Like, and here we are talking to him. So it's so cool.
Oh,
and way to nail that closing. Way to nail the goodbye, Gary.
It was just off the top of my head.
Just the top of your head.
Awesome. Well, honestly, you can. So everything. Honestly, Jack is a really cool person to follow on social media. If you ever go on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, which you should, follow @Astro2Fish. That's his handle, right? He shares all these different photos of what he's doing, all the experiments he's doing, photos of Earth, and he's just super engaged in the mission. You can see everything he's doing there. Really an incredible thing to follow. If you just want to follow everything on the International Space Station, we have those too. @ISS, I think is, or @space_station.
There's a whole bunch of different sites you can follow. As he said, it's NASA.gov for pretty much everything NASA's doing. If you're interested in the space station, it's NASA.gov/ISS. We're all across social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Those names are all a little bit different, but it's all related to the space station. And we always like to get questions on everything. So use #AskNASA, and we'll get to as many as we can. And since I don't want to make Gary do his own shameless plug, Houston, we have a podcast. It's incredible. If you're ever wanting to go behind the scenes with the people that make human spaceflight happen, that's where you get it. You get the deep dives, you get the experts, you get the full thing, and I occasionally get to come in and do fun stuff like this. So
it's true. We've talked to some really cool people so far. You being one of them, of course, Dan.
I was the guinea pig.
But we have talked to 3 astronauts so far. We have just Jack Fisher today, but also Randy Bresnik, who's up in space right now. And we also got to talk to Shane Kimbrough like 2 days after he landed, and he gave that whole experience. But then we talk about the science, we talk about space food. We got a lot more cool episodes coming up, so stay tuned. You can find all of those on iTunes, SoundCloud, and NASA.gov, like Dan said. So I think that's going to wrap up, unless there's any more questions. Well, I'm sure there's a lot of questions, but we'll save those for. Actually, you could tweet @Astro2Fish. He might answer a couple of those for you. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for tuning in today for the first live recording of Houston, We Have a Podcast. That'll do it for us here, and hope you keep listening to us in the future. If you have any suggestions of what we should put on the show, put it in the comments or use the hashtag #AskNASA. Thanks so much.
Of the space shuttle.
Roger, 0G, and I feel
The shuttle has cleared the tower.
Actually, a huge honor to break a record like this.
Not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
Houston, welcome to space.
Hey, thanks for sticking around. So we already kind of plugged everything that we needed to plug. We talked about where you can follow Jack Fisher, where you can follow the International Space Station, ask questions, do all that kind of stuff. So the only thing I'll add is that this podcast was recorded on August 10th, 2017. Thanks to Alex Perryman, John Stoll, Tommy Gerzik, Paula Vargas, Charles Clendaniel, Greg Wiseman, Rob Navius, and of course, Dan Hewitt. And thanks again to Colonel Jack Fisher for coming on the show. We'll be back next week.